NATO is more powerful today than ever before. It's expanding, evolving, and shaping global security like no other force. But is NATO a force for stability or a trigger for conflict? And what happens if Article 5 is tested again in today's unpredictable world? Tonight, we dive into the past, present, and future of NATO, the alliance that defines modern geopolitics. After World War II, the world was basically split into two rival gangs. On one side, the Soviet Union pushing for communist expansion, and on the other, the US and its Western allies trying to keep them in check. Europe, still reeling from the war, didn't exactly want to be the next battlefield. So, in 1949, NATO was born. Think of it as a high-stakes neighborhood watch. An attack on one is an attack on all. This was all about deterring Soviet aggression, and for decades, NATO bulked up, adding members like Greece, Turkey, and West Germany, all while the Cold War tensions made the world a giant pressure cooker. But then, plot twist, the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, and people started asking, do we still need NATO? Instead of fading into a relic of the past, NATO reinvented itself. It expanded, took on peacekeeping missions, tackled cyber threats, and even jumped into the fight against terrorism. By 1999, former Eastern Bloc countries like Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic had joined, proving that NATO wasn't just about countering the Soviets, it was now a broader security force. Whether it was intervening in the Balkans in the 90s, responding to 9/11, or combating piracy off the Somali coast, NATO kept evolving. The 2014 annexation of Crimea by Russia made one thing clear: the alliance still had a very real enemy to deter. Today, NATO is front and center in global security, dealing with everything from Russia's invasion of Ukraine to cyber warfare and hybrid threats. But it's not all smooth sailing. There's always been tension over who foots the bill, with the US often complaining that Europe isn't paying its fair share. The alliance relies heavily on American military resources, and that power imbalance has caused some awkward family dinner moments among member states. European nations like Germany and France have occasionally pushed for more independence in their defense strategies, but the truth is, when crisis hits, NATO remains the backbone of their security. The war in Ukraine only reinforced that, as even neutral countries like Finland and Sweden lined up to join. Speaking of expansion, NATO's growth has been a major sore spot for Russia. Moscow has long viewed NATO as creeping into its backyard, breaking supposed post-Cold War promises. Every new country that joins, especially former Soviet republics, adds fuel to that fire. The 2008 war in Georgia, the annexation of Crimea in 2014, and Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 were, at least in part, reactions to NATO's eastward march. Still, NATO keeps growing. Finland is in, Sweden is knocking on the door, and Russia is fuming. So the big question remains, does this expansion make Europe safer, or is it just poking the bear? While NATO was originally designed to counter the Soviet Union, today's security threats are more complex and multidimensional. Cybersecurity is now a battlefield, with state-sponsored hackers launching digital warfare. Terrorism is another challenge, as non-state actors operate outside traditional military structures. And then there's hybrid warfare. Think misinformation campaigns, economic pressure, and good old-fashioned military intimidation, often blended together. But NATO isn't just fighting external threats, it also faces internal struggles. Disagreements over defense spending, strategic priorities, and political divisions sometimes strain the alliance. Yet time and again, NATO has shown it can adapt. Despite only having 31 official members, NATO's reach extends far beyond its borders. Countries like Ukraine, Georgia, and Sweden have developed close partnerships with the alliance, even without full membership. Ukraine in particular has received significant NATO support against Russian aggression, though officially joining remains a highly sensitive issue. Meanwhile, NATO is expanding its connections beyond Europe, forming security ties with nations like Australia, Japan, and South Korea. This reflects a growing realization. Security threats today are global, and alliances need to be broader than just one region. At the heart of NATO's power is Article 5, the rule that an attack on one is an attack on all. This principle has only been used once, after the September 11th attacks in 2001. In response, NATO launched military operations in Afghanistan, marking the first time the alliance fought outside Europe. But as tensions rise with Russia and China, the question lingers. If another NATO member is attacked, will the alliance respond with the same level of unity? Or will political divisions weaken the power of Article 5 when it's needed most? For decades, NATO's primary adversary was Russia. But now another superpower is creeping onto its radar, China. Beijing's growing military capabilities, cyber operations, and economic reach pose a new set of challenges. In recent years, NATO leaders have started addressing China's rise, recognizing its impact on global security. While NATO is unlikely to intervene directly in the Indo-Pacific, its alliances with countries like Japan and South Korea suggest that the West is paying close attention. Will NATO one day shift its focus from Russia to China, or will it be forced to juggle both at once? As the world evolves, so must NATO. Its future is the subject of constant debate. Some argue that the alliance is outdated, while others believe it's more critical than ever. The war in Ukraine proved NATO's importance, but how it handles future threats will determine whether it remains a dominant force in global security. Can NATO successfully adapt to cyber warfare, growing Chinese influence, and rising global tensions? Or will political rifts and financial disputes weaken its effectiveness? I'll leave you to discuss in the comments. Is NATO still a force for stability, or has it become too big and too provocative? Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and I'll catch you soon in another video.